The Leaving Cert is just 2 weeks away. We were joined this morning by Minister for Education Norma Foley. It's a pleasure to have you here, Minister, and I know this morning we were just mentioning it. Your thoughts are, of course, with the families of people in Texas who were shot in a primary school.
Oh, absolutely. It's an unimaginable horror and unimaginable tragedy, and schools across the country in Ireland are waking up to this news this morning. And really, as Minister for Education, I do want to express my very sincere sympathy, solidarity and support to the students, the staff, the families and the wider community at Robb Elementary School. They're most certainly in our thoughts and in our hearts and in our prayers today.
Absolutely, and it was shocking news to wake up to this morning, and I think everyone feels the exact same way. Of course, you know, people are, this morning we've got Leaving Cert, it's just 2 weeks away now. You know, we're in that real lead up to it where students are really sort of frantic, but they're sitting a full Leaving Cert this year, and the Students' Union, 70% voted, we do not want this, we're not prepared for this. And we know we've changed the Leaving Cert. There's going to be more choice and less questions. But where does this stop, Minister? For next year, people in fifth year, are they going to be like, well, we need to have the exact same Leaving Cert as what they had this year?
Well, I think in the first instance, and I do want to pay tribute to the students, I'm very pleased to say that as Minister for Education, the students now sit at the decision-making table of the Department of Education. It did strike me when I arrived that students were not front and centre when it came to making decisions, and I was very keen.
They were part of this decision?
Very much so.
Talking to the Students' Union, a lot of them, I mean, remarkable numbers, didn't want to sit the traditional Leaving Cert. So if they were part of this decision...
Yeah, again, so just to explain, the students have been around the table for all of the decision-making processes in terms of the reopening of our schools and indeed the Leaving Certificate programme. And the students actually asked for a number of things. They asked for clarity and certainty, which we gave. They asked for accommodation in the exams so that they were conscious that, we'll say, the class of 2021 had significant accommodations made on their paper. They asked for similar, and they got that. They asked that the grade profile, you know, people have spoken about the grade inflation and that the grade profile that was achieved by the class of 2021, that they would have a similar grade profile for the class of 2022, and we granted that. The last thing they did ask for was the accredited grade system. And we worked through that, but we did discover in working through it, we had 1/4 of our present Leaving Certificate class who did not have junior cycle results, which meant that we were not in a position to deliver the accredited grades this year similar to last year. And I do want to acknowledge that the student union representatives from Issue, they themselves worked through all this with us, and in fact when the announcement was made, they themselves said they understood why that decision had to be made. So I think they showed great leadership, they showed great determination to participate and be part of it, and very much so to recognise that everything is not simple. It's not by magic that we can do everything. And when they sat around the table, they could see the genuine efforts that we made to present for them.
And you could hear that, and they were delighted to finally get an announcement of exactly, just put it to bed what they were going to do. And you were trying to be fair, and we totally understand that. But at the same time, with fairness, what you've done for the Leaving Cert, you have made it really easier, so that, and you've assured that the students this year will have the same grade inflation as we saw the last 2 years. So where does it end? I mean, if it's going to keep inflating year after year, you know, that's not going to be fair for next year when they have to sit a normal season. So how are we going to tackle this? How are we going, like, we're seeing inflation all over the place, but we're seeing it absolutely in grades too.
Well, I think what we need to say, and you're right, when we speak of fairness, it has to be at the centre of all that we're doing. So it is fair that accommodation has been made on the paper this year as last year. The advisory group, again, and the students are part of that advisory group, will meet again in terms of, we'll say, the process for the present fifth years who will be next year's sixth years, in terms of what accommodations need to be made in the paper. And when I say accommodations, we're talking about what we did over the last 2 years. It was greater choice, less questions, more time, whatever.
So is that going to be the same year on year?
If that's required, all of those accommodations.
No, but if we've got, honestly, if we've got students now, that there was a lottery system last year for things like pharmacy, medicine, you know, that they couldn't get in, universities had to use a lottery system. So students this year are like, well, I'm not going to get in because of grade inflation this year. I'm going to defer my place to next year because they might have gotten rid of grade inflation, but I'm with my 660 points because of it. Honestly, the knock-on effect, when does it stop?
Well, that is the point. Each year we take a look at you know, the accommodations were made made on foot of their experience of COVID, and in particular the time that they would have lost from an in-person teaching and learning. In terms of the grade profile, as you speak about grade inflation, we have given the commitment that over time that will decrease. I don't think it would be fair to the class of 2023 next year that by one big, click of the fingers that everything would go back to, we'll say, Leaving Certificate to, 2019.
So it'll be incremental.
Over time, it's
trying to deflate it.
And again, that's in the interest of fairness. And in terms of the accommodations and the papers, incremental over time. There's a recognition that every student over the last number of years has been impacted by COVID. It is in the best interest that we show fairness to them, and fairness to them means that there will be no one big bang where the grade profile goes back to 2019. As I've said, over time it will decrease.
Was COVID the perfect time to see senior cycle reform? Because you talk about this is 6 years ago, that UN report from the Committee of Rights of Children, to talk about the Leaving Cert and how it needed reform. 6 years ago, there's talk that it might not happen until 2030. But was COVID not the time to tear up the paper, start afresh and have something new to go forward to?
And I'm very pleased that you've raised that, because I have announced in March of this year an entire reform of senior cycle.
When?
Beginning already, we're saying, for example, next year we're seeing that the paper 1 in Irish and in English will be taken at the end of 5th year.
So it could take the 7 years to get to 2030?
No, and we've also announced that there are new subjects, additional subjects, and we've said that 9 of the subjects will be reviewed almost instantaneously. They will be worked out through our network schools, and that begins in 2024. We're also seeing this year, for example, and we're not just talking about Leaving Certificate established, the Leaving Certificate exam in June. We're talking about all of senior cycle. We're talking about a new transition year programme coming on stream. We're talking about every school being resourced to ensure that they can offer transition year. We're talking about this coming September.
But talking about it is fine.
No,
I just thought...
But I can give you the deadlines,
which
I think
COVID would have been a great time to actually just start afresh.
But it is actually starting afresh. For example, this year we have 3 programmes at Leaving Certificate. We have Leaving Certificate Applied, we have LCVP and Leaving Certificate Established. For the first time now, students will be in a position to move, if a student is taking Leaving Certificate Applied, if he or she wishes to take, for example, maths from the traditional Leaving Cert, as we'll call it, they can do that. And I was very keen that that would happen, because it's my understanding that their career options are sometimes limited if they don't have Leaving Certificate established maths. For example, there are particular careers where that type of maths programme is offered. So what I'm saying to you is, I have used the opportunity of COVID, in the midst of COVID, to announce a very significant overhaul of senior cycle. Some of it we will see in this September, some of it in 24, and all of it being rolled out incrementally. It's a significant overhaul, and as you're quite correct, has been long overdue. There's been a lot of talking about this for 10, 20 years, and it has never been grappled, it has never been grasped, and I'm very proud to say as Minister that I made all those announcements and have given the concrete timelines in March of this year.
And we've got so much we need to talk to you about, because do you have any clue when the CEO results are going to come out? Because we still don't have a date, and people are trying to decide, oh God, where am I going to get accommodation? Do we have any clue?
OK, well, this year, again, as a consequence of COVID, we have made the decision that there will be a second sitting of the Leaving Cert.
In July,
so that we'll say straight after they finish the first sitting, there's a second sitting. On the off chance that students are unfortunate and they are impacted by COVID, they will have the opportunity to sit the second exam. Students are very appreciative of that. I think it's only right. I think it takes a huge burden of responsibility and worry from their shoulders. But as a consequence of that, the State Examinations Commission have actually said that until they see the numbers that are taking the second sitting, it is then that they will be in a position to announce the date. Now, in an ideal world, we would love to be able to say 2 weeks ago, the State Examinations Commission, I'm sure, and it is their responsibility, would love to have been able to say this is when it would be. But I think in the interest, and we've spoken this morning about fairness, students should have that second opportunity to take the exam.
So we have to wait until the Leaving Cert starts to see the numbers that will be taking them in July.
The second exam, and the State Examinations Commission have committed to making that announcement at that point.
Can we go on to teachers now? And everybody is feeling the pinch at the minute, but no more so than teachers. I mean, they are reported as being having the 4th highest salary in the EU, but some are having to take on extra jobs, staying in hostels, particularly teachers having to work in the likes of Dublin, Cork, big cities, with the cost of rent.
Especially new teachers,
Is there anything the government is doing to try and help teachers?
Well, I
particularly those maybe in cities that might be finding it a little bit more difficult than around rural Ireland?
Well, again, I think to be fair, government is very conscious of the cost of living situation. You've referenced teachers and the newly qualified teachers who from September this year in and around 38,000 of a salary. But we're very conscious of the world in which we're living, that it's not just unique to Ireland, it's an international situation now in terms of cost of living. And government has introduced a whole myriad of measures, whether it's in terms of energy supports and whether it's in terms of everything from public transport. We've introduced, even from my own point of view, in terms of children being eligible for buses, a reduction in the payment for school transport. There's a whole myriad of measures.
But this is recruiting teachers in. Reports from 2019 saying teachers do not recommend other people to become teachers. They're being recruited into things like tech. The social contract seems gone. Like, are you worried about losing teachers?
If you look at our CEO applications, there's an increase again this year in terms of interest from students to take up positions in teaching.
I know, and so many people go to the Middle East.
Indeed, yes, they do. But I'm speaking very directly about those who are applying in the first instance to be teachers. We're seeing an increase again this year. For a variety of different reasons, for many, many years and for a very long time, students and young people have taken the opportunity to travel abroad, to do different things before they settle down into a particular career choice. That may well be adventure. It may well be the circumstances that pertain within the country in terms of cost of living.
Yeah.
But I do very specifically say we are very conscious, and as I say, already we have seen where discussions and negotiations and engagements with Minister Michael McGrath have opened up again in terms of public sector pay and all of that. So, government is resilient and proactive in terms of recognising the issues that are there. And again, I will say to you, they're not unique to this country.
We have to move on quickly, but even at the story at the front of the paper this morning about the Department of Education actually blocking a lot of housing, where we're seeing there's a huge crisis in this country as well. But I have to ask you about this.
Could I just very quickly just reference that? The Department of Education has not objected to housing. What the Department of Education has asked for is that where you are planning to build large numbers of houses, you should also make provision for schools.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a very practical,
Should the other sector of the government not be going, lads, you're given planning, you've given planning permission here, can we make sure we're getting all school?
But what I'm saying to you is we work now with the local authorities. We have done all that we can to advise them that if wherever housing goes, education must follow. So this is what we're asking for.
Can I move on to this exciting new initiative you have in the form of arts called Blast?
Yes, indeed. We're very pleased to announce today the next tranche, if you like, of Blast experts coming into our schools. Blast is all about bringing live artists into our schools. So, and I've seen such wonderful uptake in our schools. We've seen musicians, we've seen dancers and potters and those who work in stained glass, just a whole variety of artists and specialists working directly with our students in the schools. And today we're unveiling also, we invited students throughout the year to come up with an appropriate logo. And so we got a huge number of applications from around the country. And today we're announcing that the winner, and we'll be showcasing it now, is a wonderful 12-year-old student from Cove. Her name is Lily Fleming. And a huge congratulations to her. She's in sixth class.
Fair play to her.
And her work is just so evocative of all that we want to achieve through Blast. So she has, in the words, she has included, aspects of film. She's included colour and
we just had it up there on the screen. It's
very striking.
Lovely. And it's so nice to actually see, because the arts are sometimes neglected so much, to see it coming into schools and go, this is important as well.
And it enriches our students all the more. And from Lily's point of view, I had an opportunity to speak with her yesterday, and I know she's really proud of her achievement. And so congratulations to her classmates in Cove, and to her teacher, Mr. Stevenson. We're very proud. And as I said to her yesterday, we're looking forward to meeting with her on a personal basis.
Congratulations, Lily Fleming.
Well done, Lily.
It's gorgeous.
And Gary Stevenson, of course, the teacher as well. Minister for Education, Norma Foley. Thank you so much for coming in.
Delighted to be here.
Thanks so much.